So I'm going to show you how to start building your website structure inside Dreamweaver. But before we get there, I want to show you my sketch first so you can see what is the website that we're going to build in Dreamweaver, and I want to show you the basic parts of the web page because that directly relates to the structure we're going to create in HTML. So here I have my Illustrator sketch for my home page. It's going to be my teaching website, and I've kept it very simple and clean, but I want to show you all the different elements. So I've added labels that I can show you what are the parts of this web page. So up at the top we have a header. Now these labels are not going to appear in the final website. These are just to show you. The header contains my logo, a background, and the top navigation. That's the top navigation there. And it's going to be inside the header. I also have my left navigation, which is the content of each of my classes that I'm teaching. On the right side, I have the main content area where I will be having tutorials or articles about the classes. At the bottom, I have the footer area, which contains links to everything, just in another place to make it user-friendly for people to access all the pages on the site, and also a copyright notice. And then everything is contained within a container to keep it all organized. Now in Dreamweaver, the first thing I'm going to do is create what's called a Dreamweaver Site. A site is basically a folder that contains all of my HTML files, all my images, pretty much everything that I'm creating, all inside one folder. Think of it like your project folder in any other kind of application where you keep all your project files organized in one place. So from the welcome screen, I click Site Setup. I give my site a name, and choose a folder where I'm going to save it. And now I'm going to create a new HTML page within that site. This is going to be my home page. So as you can see on the right, I have the site that I created, and all the files that are already in that folder show up. So previously I had my sketch that I created or wireframe that I created in Illustrator and my site plan in that folder. So all those files automatically show up because they sit in that folder. This is going to be my home page. So I want to create this new HTML file, and before I do anything, I want to save it in my site folder. And once I've created a site in Dreamweaver, and if I happen to be in some other folder, I can always come back to my site home folder by clicking Site Root, and you see it automatically jumps to my site folder. And now this is important. I want to save my home page as index.html. This name, when you upload your site to the web, to your UH server, this name will tell the server that this is the home page. So when someone goes to your UH website, this is the first page that will pop up. So I just want to change my file name, choose the folder, and save. And notice as soon as Dreamweaver is done saving, index.html shows up automatically under my site folder. So Dreamweaver always keeps a check on this site folder, and any new files that I add will be updated in this listing. Now in design view, I'm just going to change my title first. And then I can start typing some basic placeholder content based on what I had over here. I know I want to create a header, and I don't have any text for my header yet. I'm going to create a logo image, but for now, temporarily, I'm just going to type some text. Next, I'm going to type out these links for my top navigation. And for top navigation, we will use lists in HTML. We've already gone over lists. In this case, I'm going to use an unordered list, which is sort of like bullet points. And I hit enter twice to complete that list. Now going back to my sketch, next I have my left navigation. I'm going to insert another list here. And within each of these, I'm going to insert a sublist for the pages inside that section. And this finishes my left navigation. Next, I have my content area, and for now I'm just going to type some dummy text for the content area. And now that that's done, the last element that remains is the footer. And again, these links are going to be an unordered list. And this is just going to be plain text. And now I can save my file. Now that I have all the beginning content for each of my sections, I can start inserting my structure in HTML. Now that we've typed some sample text or actual text for all our sections on our page, we can start structuring our HTML page. And to do that, we structure our page into page divisions, or called divs for short. A div is simply a block of content which could contain text or images or both, and different divs or divisions put together create your whole web page. Now in our example, here I have a container div that contains everything. Within that I have a header which contains a top nav. After the header I have the left nav and the content and the footer. These are the different divs that make up my page. And this is what it looks like in Dreamweaver at the moment. I've opened up split view so you can see that as I create the divs in design view, some changes happen on the code side of it, so you can see both as they happen. Now to create my divs, I'm going to start from the largest div first and then break it down into smaller divs. So I'm going to insert the container div, which contains everything on the page. And it's really easy to create a div that contains everything. All you have to do is select all the content on the page and then go up to Insert, Structure, Div. And Dreamweaver brings up the Insert Div options. The first option is where do you want to insert the div, and this is really easy. The default option is Wrap Around Selection, and because I selected all the text on the page, it's going to wrap all of that text inside my div, which is going to be my page container. And container is simply the name I'm giving it, and the name goes under ID. I just type container as the name. I tell Dreamweaver to wrap this div around my selection, and everything is selected, as you can see. And then I just click OK. And Dreamweaver creates this box around all my content. If I mouse over the box, it turns red just to show me that this div is selected. And if I select the div, it shows me that there's an ID of container, and that ID belongs to a div tag or a page division. And that's how simple it is to create divs or to structure your content into divs in Dreamweaver. Now that my container div is created, in the next step I'm going to go and break up the smaller content into smaller divs. Now inside my container, I have the big divs are really header, left nav, content, and footer. And header also contains top nav. Eventually I'm going to break down content into smaller divs for the featured lessons and for all the 3 articles. But for now I'm keeping it simple, and I'm just going to create header, top nav, left nav, content, and footer. So the process is the same. And again, we're going to go big to small. So for example, in the case of the header is going to contain this sample text and the top nav menu. So I select everything from the sample text down to the end of the menu. Notice it also gets selected in the code view. And then I go to Insert, Structure, Div. Once again, I say Wrap Around Selection, and I give it the ID of header and click OK. And you see what happened. Dreamweaver created a box around all the header content. This is going to be my left navigation. So I select all the text in my left navigation, go to Insert, Structure, Div, Wrap Around Selection, call it left nav, and click OK. And there comes my left nav. Now it looks like the bullets are outside the div, but don't worry about that. Eventually we won't have these bullet points. When we style the page with CSS, it's going to look very different. Now here we have the content. And again, just insert a div, wrap around selection, call it content, hit OK, and that's it. And all of this is going to be my footer. So insert, structure, div, wrap around selection, footer, and click OK. Now the only thing left to do is create the top nav, which is inside the header. When you have one div inside another, we call it nested divs. And we've already created some nested divs because our header, left nav, and content and footer are nested inside the container. Now we're going to go one level further and create top nav as a nested div inside header. And it's really simple again. I select all the content for my top navigation menu, go to Insert, Structure, Div, Wraparound Selection, and say Top Nav. And there you go. Now here I have, as you can see in my code, I have a container which contains everything. I have a header which contains all of this content. Inside the header, I have top nav. It's really cool that every time I click on a div in the code, Dreamweaver highlights the actual div for me here. Now moving on, I have the left nav. I have content, and I have footer. And that's it. I've broken up my whole page into divs, and you can do the same.